Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we're checking out Baron Zemo's new uniform. And you know, I don't like to make these kinds of videos as far as saying that something isn't worth it, but the consumer needs to know. So I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to give you a quick little preview of what Baron Zemo was doing before. And not that everyone's going to purchase his uniform expecting big DPS. Not every character is a DPS machine. But at the same time, it's good to know what you're getting into because it's 1,000 crystal investment. And before you know it, you don't have any more crystals. So anyways, we're just doing a quick little DPS check here at stage 99 with double support and his own leadership, which is of course 50% more damage to, or 50% increased damage to villains. And of course, he's a villain. So this is what his regular uniform looks, his regular outfit, his default outfit looks like. A character's first uniform is usually a big upgrade for them regardless because of the stat boost, the all attack, all defense boost, and then those flat stats. But there you go. We were able to do about 2 bars of damage in almost a minute. So we're just going to use this as a barometer how long it took him to get down to 2 bars of damage, because he's not going to get much further in a minute, in the next 10 seconds to call it a minute, and then it's going to be at a weird part of the bar. Not very impressive, right? The really big thing, if I had to critique Baron Zemo, is that as a standalone character, like for him to do damage, in order for him to do damage, he has to be able to apply bleed. He can actually do really good damage when he can apply bleed. I'm not actually joking when I say that. Crooked Justice is, like, the 30% bleed is not bad in certain situations. Like, to be honest with you, in PvP, if they don't have a debuff lead, it's not that bad, because like pretty much all of his skills, or almost all of his skills, apply a bleed. Actually, none of these do, but this one applies a burn, and this one, okay, I think all of his skills apply bleed because of this passive. Yeah, so all of his skills apply bleed because of Blood Blade, and the 20% damage is 20% of whatever damage he deals, but then it also gets increased by 30. Anyways, the point is, you're basically never gonna, you're never gonna see the damage in action because most people use a debuff lead in PvP. So really the only other place where you can see Baron Zemo's actual damage is Shadowland. And he's actually pretty good for Shadowland, I'm not gonna lie. With a very straightforward build before I don't even know if I wanna call this a straightforward build. With a build, with an ignored, like he's got nothing damage-wise going for him. And he can easily solo like a level 50, level 60 Shadowland stage before I had any Pierce. So he's actually not bad, but it's like, are you getting a premium character for Shadowland? Probably not. Are you gonna buy that premium character's uniform and then have to upgrade the premium character's uniform to Mythic for Shadowland? Probably not, right? And my voice gets higher and higher because it sounds more and more ridiculous. Not that a high voice sounds ridiculous, but in my case, I was putting on the kind of like a Mickey Mouse voice. And in the case of Zemo's uniform, I actually don't even have the bios yet. I have to go and get them from the bio sub. So I have to buy multiple bio subs for this dude. Now, this new uniform is definitely better. Like I said, first uniforms are always better for a character, but they stuck with the bleed effect. And they stuck with the bleed passive. They increased it, but they still stuck with it. So that's really the issue here. He does have all defense down now that ignores immunity, but the issue is that he can't apply the bleed to bosses, and that's really what's going to hold him back. So I've said this before, but it just sort of goes to it's important to repeat. If you're buying this uniform, you're buying it either because you love the character or you're buying it for the increased leadership. The increased leadership is actually useful if you're the type to already be using Baron Zemo's lead. It's 10% more attack than the other uniform. The other uniform was 50, this one's 60, and it adds 35% ignore dodge. Now, if he gets a tier 3 or a transcendence, then this uniform does creep up in value, especially because we know how valuable ignore dodge is against null. And we know how valuable he can be on an all villain team for something like DRX because of Moonstone, Supergiant. Like there's a lot of really strong villains now. But he has to get that tier 3 or that transcendence. Right now, the only reason you're buying this uniform, besides loving the character, is ABX. Now it did add, I played ABX yesterday, and I usually get about 8 million with Corvus. Yesterday was Speed Villain Day. If my fingers can press the right button, I got 8.5 million. So his uniform actually adds close to 500,000 points on an already very high score. Keep in mind, it's a little bit more inflated this month for ABX because it's paralyzed, and the paralyzed buffs include ignore dodge or guaranteed dodge. So ignore dodge is very, very good for the paralyzed month for ABX. But It is pretty much a must-buy if you're in a top 16 alliance, which is a little bit frustrating. We haven't seen these sorts of uniforms in a while from Marvel Future Fight, so I guess they're back to they're back to that old habit in a sense. But anyways, enough talk. Let's go back in and see here. What I mean by they're back to the old habit of releasing a uniform that's basically just for those, you know, 4,000 to 5,000 players who are really competitive in ABX to go and purchase without actually offering a substantial change to the character. He has some new skill animations, ZEMO does, which are really cool. Like, don't get me wrong. He's got some real, like, I really love this animation, but, and he has some more defensive abilities. I actually should have applied the all defense down first. That was my mistake, but we'll apply now. But you'll see the damage is not, you know. And actually, his survivability is a little bit questionable. The nice thing is I don't have to worry about his, so there we go. So you can see he was able to do that 13 seconds faster, so we can continue the battle here. And again, I think this mostly comes down to the all defense down because his bleed is still not applying. But this dude is definitely going to need a lot more. If he were to get a tier 3 or a transcendence, I don't think it's going to be enough. Okay, so he can't even do a bar more of damage with this new uniform. That's troubling, right? He's really not getting any kind of substantial rework from a standalone point of view. They're definitely making him a better support, and you could compare his uniform to, let's say, Nick Fury's uniform, and we didn't necessarily complain about that one when it came out, although we were sort of used to. I'm not necessarily complaining, I'm just saying, you know, we have sort of been gotten used to, and we have been kind of spoiled with uniforms that are always pushing these characters to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. Whereas, I mean, this uniform now is over 2 years old, but it came out with the movie, and we sort of have come to expect movie uniforms to drop at the same time. So basically, you never play with this character, you always play with this one. I mean, this upgraded version, so to speak, if you bought them at the same time. But essentially, the buffs that this uniform gives are purely support buffs. There's very little difference between these. So I think that's probably a good comparison. I would say ZEMO's uniform is better than Nick Fury's uniform as far as the buffs, because like I said, adding 500,000 in ABX when I'm already at 8 million is huge. So if you're lower than 7 million, especially for speed villain, and you're trying to push to 7 million, maybe you consider buying this one because he's going to be the best leadership for all of the speed villain days. I'm pretty sure. Now that Mystique has been overtaken by Corvus, Mystique's leadership is not going to be useful for herself anymore because she's just supplying you with that support buff. But yeah, besides his support tendency, he really doesn't have anything new to offer. I mean, he has ignore targeting here, and he has 100% penetration, but I doubt this is going to be valuable for PvP because he has no healing, he has low HP, and he doesn't have a transcendence or a tier 3, so he's not going to be able to hang with those characters to be able to pull off these iframe ignore skills and these sort of tactics and things like this. So really, I think the Baron ZEMO represents a turning point for character and character uniforms in Marvel Future Fight. And we've seen this turning point before when every character was getting tier 2 and then we started to get tier 3s, and you know, when every character was getting 750 crystal uniforms and then they started upgrading 7 to 1050 crystal uniforms, when we had a bunch of tier 2s and native tier 2s and we started getting native tier 3s, you know, about 8 months back. It is that we've basically hit a saturation point for value. And I think right next to Baron ZEMO is another really good example of that in Taskmaster. Some people are actually looking at Taskmaster as a good pickup for tier 3 because not only can you get this uniform to get him, you know, to give this passive buff, which is good for PvE and PvP, but then you can push him all the way to tier 3 where he can continue to give you that value despite the fact that as a standalone character, he's not really giving you much. And if you compare Baron ZEMO and you compare Taskmaster to characters even released at the beginning of the year, like Thor and Valkyrie and others, they pale in comparison, right? But we're going to hit that saturation point eventually. I believe we've already hit it. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something to look out for. And, you know, going forward, having the expectation, I think, in my opinion anyways, that every single character upgrade, every single new uniform that we get is going to push the envelope is just unrealistic, because that would lead to this really rapid incline of power creep, and it would basically make the game just way too easy by the end of the year, essentially. Like, if Baron Zemo was actually supposed to build on the power level of Winter Soldier and Captain America Falcon, that would be crazy if you think about it. Now, some people will argue that it's a bit unfair, or it may not be just because he's a paywall character, he's a premium character, and he has his uses, like I've said, as a leadership in Squad Battle and ABX, and I actually haven't even tested him in Squad Battle, but I'm pretty sure that he's going to bump up my scores there a little bit at least, because I do use his leadership in conjunction with these two team-ups. But then again, you know, you're always going to have a situation where not every character can be meta, not every character is going to push the envelope damage-wise as a standalone, but in terms of leaderships, he has one of the best villain leaderships in the game now. So he is technically meta in some way because of that. Like, that's one of the best offensive leaderships in the game, period. That actually might be the best offensive leadership in the game. The only problem is it only applies to villains, and we have a ton of really strong heroes that just can't take advantage of it. But yeah, and for now, we don't have all the you can't take advantage of it in every single content. You can't take advantage of it in DRX, Robust Legend, or story mode fragment farming. But yeah, so I don't really see the point in doing a deeper analysis or a deeper dive into the value of this uniform standalone. I wouldn't necessarily recommend building up your Zemo. I know some people are building him up in anticipation of his tier 3 or Transcendence, but from what I've heard, and I will be looking into it for Taskmaster, Taskmaster doesn't get much better at tier 3. It's not really a Ghost Rider situation where at tier 2 he's kind of like and then at tier 3 he explodes. Taskmaster is probably going to imitate what we should expect from Zemo, where even if you tier 3 him, he's really only, you know, serving one purpose, sort of like Cyclops. That's a really good example. I feel like we just got the Phoenix 5 uniform for Cyclops, but this time it's for Baron Zemo. So hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of Dancing Zemo. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to purchase the uniform just for the dancing. I should have mentioned that as the other reason to purchase this uniform. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.